Yeah, it's not like downtown Atlanta. Just the vibe wasn't very, Georgia Tech and Georgia just didn't really sit with it. She likes psychology.
When you said Georgia Tech, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, she went through all the STEM stuff, but she kind of got out of.
Good to see you.
They should have the opportunity to be able to share anything, and it is recording. Okay? You're welcome. Is after the meeting, we'll put on a Vimeo link and send it to David, and then he can send it to whoever needs it.
Do you know if
Hair right there.
Well, Vimeo may, actually, once we upload it.
it's not this one as well?
Seen some buttons.
Okay.
She's going into clinical psychology.
Okay.
No, she's going to do any research.
Bring her back here, man.
Same here. It's like walking here.
Specifically in this room.
We don't
Still
change
here.
anything about that. Okay.
Don't say anything.
Some kind of
Good to know.
If
So I
you
think that's a good
are,
idea here.
yes, you go to,
Probably doesn't apply to y'all.
and then,
It would apply to me because strategic control.
and then once you do that, it'll ask you for the
Basically,
username and password.
Help with it. So that's what it's about, is trying to create a, for anybody who's.
When is the next meeting?
I don't know, it's really just to be more. Create this awesome data piece, and then somebody else wants to do something similar, like, oh, I already did it.
Yeah.
More involved, the thing that you did with the old, remember the old records, thing that you did, put tied in right there? When we got the new system, you couldn't do it.
David,
You know,
have my
remember,
cell
you
phone
remember?
number.
Yeah, I do remember that, because I was like,
Because
that
if
was
we're not
awesome,
in
and I would
here,
love
we may
for
be
that to
in
be
the
kind of the
studio.
same, because just imagine doing that and then bringing it out to the citizens all day long, where they can see the class, their class, see, everything that they want to see. Address.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So they sent,
But just imagine if you hand set to people.
It's easiest to get to that way. We're not up here, we may be, but just call me.
Just do it, yeah, and that's one of the best, just.
Actually process.
That's retirement.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
These things happen.
Hello,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Christina.
Yeah,
Nice
it's
to
like,
meet you.
I think it was a couple years ago.
I had one graduate last year and one graduate just last month.
Yes. Yeah, I'm talking about like,
So,
like when I was in college.
Yeah.
You pregame and like.
So what are they?
Out there.
my daughter,
Family
science,
ain't going out until night. Like midnight.
but I think it's kind of an interim job. I mean, she wants to be a medical sales.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta kind of.
11 o'clock at least.
That's what I imagine y'all's breaking would be like.
You never know where it's gonna take you. But it's kind of stuff.
Yeah, to gain experience. To be able to look at.
Well,
The one you didn't like was Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he went there. Yeah.
Right now,
months ago for,
apparently it's the aerospace capital of the world.
Yeah.
it's crazy, like almost at 8 o'clock at night, and it's like, Lord. I mean, I'm actually like,
Well, my daughter yet.
Yeah,
Well,
she
she just
started,
graduated.
yeah, just
So we'll find out.
transitioning into official adulting.
All right, you guys enjoy it.
Nah, just one. Like enough to get one. So. All right, man. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, just let me
Yeah.
know. Yeah, in case they were,
David, I'll wait until you're
in
ready.
case they were already.
I keep getting these invites for PMS training. Just for you, or am I supposed to be attending these things?
what's going on?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
How you doing?
That's what I thought, so I haven't.
Such a rare to check it out office, man. I don't come down here unless y'all call me down.
Serious trouble?
I was telling, your old guy,
Yeah.
came in, I said, what's his last name?
Go out to Fern.
Sullins.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. And I said, this is the first time I think I come in here outside of an emergency in years.
Yeah.
You know, one time when Robert was around, he wanted us to go to all these, commission meetings, but one was, open staff meeting.
Yeah,
What were they
department head
called?
meetings,
Department. He would want us to do stuff like that. Since he's been gone, not so much. It's cool. How you doing?
Is that tucked in?
You let this fella keep his hair long on How you like it that long?
As long as he doesn't have noticeable tattoos, I'm.
Should be able to.
Got to get rid of half of it.
I'm just teasing.
I knew you would.
We don't have to sit here and take that too.
Say, I think you had something.
That's why I said it.
The other one, I think I had the other one.
Chatham County.
I don't want you to read that. For example,
You should get a brand. Brand.
I had to search Heinlein for these.
Anything right?
It says a mint.
Oh, no, not really anything, so.
Yeah, but when you started.
Another one.
Okay,
Okay,
but that's quite an accomplishment.
well,
I mean, that's amazing. I've only done chapters.
I figured.
You always say that after the vacation, then you realize
Really?
you gotta be with all of your family in such a small area for so long.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I like it.
It's gotta be all you
Just you were out there, you didn't just chat real quick.
Registration sold out.
Just smart.
So what time is the packet pickup? Oh, I got one too. Packet pickup, yeah.
It started at 4 o'clock. Where you said no.
you know, one of the nicest things about Chatham County, I can drive to it. Usually I'm on a flight to California, so it's a 5-hour flight for a week, so this is wonderful for me, I mean.
Your preliminary time will be emailed to you 20 seconds after you're finished.
That's so quick.
Where's home for you at this point?
Say again?
How far away is home for you at this point?
Raleigh, I live in Raleigh, so
I just wanna know that I finished.
good car should get me here in 4.5.
Right. Got a bunch of friends up in Cary.
Oh, do you? Where are you from originally? From this part of the world?
I know Bermuda, actually.
You are? Recently, that's come up in conversation with people in Britain, so, because I think there's a direct flight from Raleigh now to Bermuda. I think it's off the North Carolina coast, that's how I describe it.
Yeah. We got
That's interesting. And how long did you live there?
I mean, I was born and raised there until about 12.
Say
For
it's
those that
Georgia,
gotta
but
run.
it's
Here, but I always had family there, so.
Does it really have a
Running?
British flavor? Yeah. I thought so. Interesting, that's interesting. And then from there, where did you, at 12, where did you go?
Eastern Shore, Maryland.
But you and
Chesapeake Bay, yeah.
Street, yeah. Oh, in that, yeah.
You've ended
I'll give y'all a good.
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Gad seems to come out and have all the kids are all
Mental game, okay, like I'm supreme, like,
at university or finishing. Gad always comes to my conversation with all the kids in Raleigh.
like competitive triathlon
How we doing?
7 years ago.
Okay, well, that's good.
It's gonna be free because of our.
I'm just aiming for my average time of like 35 minutes.
Yeah, that's the expensive, the hotel.
Then we'll be average.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day, shoot,
Can they hear us? Karen, can you hear us?
yeah, kicked in that one.
I don't see Sharon
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. You bring up the PowerPoint.
Yes, just a moment.
For everybody who's home, we're having some technical difficulties, but I promise you it won't go for a few more minutes.
Let's see. Trying to share on Zoom. Let's see if I can do that.
So I'm David Anderson, and we've selected Geographic Technologies Group and David Holdstock to be to perform our 10-year geospatial strategic plan. And David's worked with local communities doing GIS strategic planning for a long time. We've probably known each other for over 20 years, I want to say, in the GIS realm doing this. I met him in Athens at the Georgia Geospatial Conference, where he was giving a speech about ROI and saving money and lives and houses and structures, you know, and coming full circle now, you know, we're looking at how we can create a vision and for the next 10 years. So with that, it's David Holdstock.
David, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody's online. I do appreciate it. You know, it's not difficult coming down to see you all and presenting. It's quite a pleasure, actually. So I want to thank everybody for selecting the company I work for, Geographic Technologies Group, to perform, as you can see, a comprehensive 10-year geospatial strategic plan. Now, the unusual thing about that is we don't usually do 10-year plans, so it makes it even more exciting. So my career will benefit from a selfish reason for looking into emerging technologies and where it fits in with Chatham County over the next 10 years. So it's a very exciting time. I'm going to read something to you because today I want to present what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But I also want to get your minds around where the future of GIS is. So the future of GIS is not mapping the world. It is helping governments understand, predict, and shape it. The most successful organizations will not be those with the most data, but those that transform data into action through AI-powered location intelligence. Normally, I wouldn't do that in any presentation, but this is a 10-year plan. So someone at some stage has got to talk about where AI fits into geospatial science. So it's really exciting. So what you're doing here is rewarding on many levels. So let me go into, if you go to the next slide, Sharon, what I'd like to do in the time allocated, and you're going to go, wow, how long is he going to talk for? Yes, we've got some territory to cover today. And yes, I will cover it fairly quickly, but it's important for you and everybody online, all of the stakeholders, to understand what we're trying to do here, because a lot of it is based on your needs for the future when it comes to GIS. So as you can see, I'm going to do a little introduction to the project team and our subcontractor. Then we'll talk about the scope and methodology. I'll talk about this in a second, but it's broken into 3 phases: the current state, the future state, and the implementation strategy. And then we'll talk about the schedule. I've got a 15-minute technology seminar, which just allows me to wax lyrical about GIS and geospatial, just to put it in perspective. The one thing I promise you I'll do, I will talk in layman terms and I will explain it. And if anybody wants to talk to me after this, over the next 6 months, 9 months, you certainly can pick up the phone and email me, and we can have an hour conversation about geospatial. Because part of this is a strategic plan, but part of this is explaining and educating, okay? So if you go to the next, let's just talk about the project team there for a second, if you would. Geographic Technologies Group. This is the company you selected. Now, I maintain that we're the #1 GIS strategic plan in the world. Well, that's my thoughts, you know? Whether we are or not is another matter. But we seem to, those dots represent strategic plans. So we've done an awful lot of county work, but we've done town work, city work, regional work. meaning that all of the issues that are coming up in Chatham County when it comes to GIS, we should be familiar with. We have a fairly wealth of experience when it comes to GIS strategic planning. If you go to the next, Sharon. And then I picked a few out. It doesn't really matter, but I want you to know that, you know, there are a lot of counties in the United States and provinces in Canada, but there's a lot of counties with similar characteristics, similar needs, and very different needs. So that's just a list of some counties we've done strategic plans for. And the reason I bring the list up is not because we did the plan, it's because they benefited from the plan. And there's significant benefit. They moved forward with technology. They won awards. They did everything right because someone decided to write it down. It was a plan for the future. Okay? Go to the next, Sharon. The team. That's me in the top left-hand corner. I'm going to be on board, whether you like it or not. I promise you, I'm going to be on board for the next 9 months. And we're going to take this from start to finish, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a lot of interaction, and a lot of conversations, and a lot of presenting detail and hard material in a very graphic-rich and an understandable way. On the right is Michelle Boygan. Michelle's on the call. Michelle is what I call the technical manager. She will keep it all running. She will run it like a Swiss watch. So if you have things to say or talk about and scheduling, Michelle. As you can see in the next box there, the three strategic planners, including Sharon, who's running the show now. We have subject matter experts. Can you take that down? Thanks. Okay. And then subject matter experts. And what I mean by subject matter experts, you can write a strategic plan, but you need experts in utilities. You need experts in public safety, and you need experts in all disciplines of government, and that's where we come from. At the bottom there, you can see is Donna Williams. Donna, this is Donna's team here, who I love to death already. And I remember when we picked them as a subcontractor, a local company, Donna and her team are going to be really working essentially on the engagement, stakeholder engagement. So that's a lot of fun. So that's the team. And we may pull in some other experts if we need it, but that's kind of the team you're looking at. So forewarned is forearmed. I put this in because I like this slide, actually. I just decided to throw it in. It wasn't in, but I just wanted a disclaimer on who I am. So you know, essentially, that my job is to explain everything associated with the strategic plan to you. So even though I've been roaming around North America and beyond writing strategic plans, I'm here now, and I'm here with Chatham County. And this is my focus. And this is a big focus for me because I've done a lot of them, and this is a great part of my career. So I'm really excited about continuing to publish and even use Chatham County as an example. So you can come to me anytime, online, offline. Okay, if you go to the next. And there's the team again. Just a reminder, Michelle Boyvin, but we're in a good place with all those. They're all certified and all ready to go on this project. You go to the next, thanks. And then Donna Williams. So Donna, look out for Donna. She's going to be engaged. This is the team behind. I don't really need to say a lot about Donna apart from the fact that her team are great. I think she's still a PhD candidate. How wonderful. I envy you for doing that, actually. So that's great. In fact, a colleague of mine who is here, Christina, is a Dr. Christina, we'll call her. She's on the leadership team, so we're colleagues working on this project. So I asked her to come because we needed some brains rather than an accent and a way to present. So we've got the brains with us today. So we're in a good place. So if you go to the next. Now, stop there. So we've got a team in place. We now know we've got a subcontractor, local. We know we've got a great team. We're ready to go. This is ready to start everything off. In fact, this afternoon is really a lot of analysis as well, benchmarking analysis, so we're ready to go. So let's talk about this project. Let's talk about the scope and methodology. Here, because I like to do this, is that entire thing on one slide. So have a look at those three phases for me, if you would. That's phase one, current state assessment and GIS needs assessment. That's the heavy lifting. Okay, phase one is the heavy lifting. That's where we're going to inventory, we're going to gather data, we're going to talk, and we're going to keep talking, and we're going to ask you for your needs and wants and barriers and challenges and pitfalls, and we're going to get a history of Chatham County together, and we're going to know everything about Chatham County. That's phase one. Phase two is the future definition. Where do we take it? What's next? And then at the bottom is how do we implement it over the next 10 years? So look at it in those areas. So let's think about those 3 phases, and each of the phases having like phase 1, tasks through 1 through 6, phase 2, tasks 7 through 10, and phase 3, task 11 through 15, which I'm going to go through. Okay, so let's talk, before we talk about all those tasks, let me give you something to take away with you. So as we go through this whole project, I don't ask you to remember a lot of things, but it's very useful to remember these 6 things, or have an idea about these 6 things, because these are the 6 pillars we're going to use, because we're decomposing the problem of where does Chatham County go into 6 compartments. So as we're interviewing you, as you're reading and reviewing, think about these 6 pillars. Let's start with number 1 then. Pillar 1, okay, and if you hit that, Sharon, Q, is GIS governance. Go ahead. That's timing. You see, it's all about timing. Okay, Sharon. No, don't go to the next one, Sharon. That's just not right. Stay on pillar. So governance. Okay, so governance, arguably, is the most important part of making this all work. Now you're blessed because a friend of mine works here, David Anderson. So I know what he's capable of doing. I know his qualifications. But the governance, there's euphemisms for governance. There's staffing, okay? There's governance, and there's job descriptions, and there's loads of things related to that. So what we're going to do is look at your governance model now and your governance model in the future. Secondly, we're looking at pillar 2, the accuracy and reliability of your data and databases, and your data schemas and your metadata and everything associated with it, okay? You all know the data's driving GIS, but maybe just in the future our data schemas and our database designs may need to change if we're using AI. I don't know, but that's data and databases. Number 3, you could say policy, but GIS procedures, workflow integration, and interoperability. GIS is a system of systems, meaning that GIS more than likely should integrate with all your enterprise systems. So we're going to look at that as well, pillar 3. Pillar 4, GIS software. The entire Esri ecosystem is made up of mobile tools, desktop tools, business applications, and everything in between. That's exciting, the software. But it's not complicated. Everything I'm saying is not complicated, because we're breaking it down into understandable components. And that's what I love doing, because at some stage, we're going to build it back up again. I just want you to know we're going to strip away, get all this information on governance, data, procedures, software, and then, of course, the IT infrastructure and architecture. Without the IT people, we don't have to like the IT people. No, you don't have to, but they're the nicest people in the world. For this project, they are. Okay, because they're the people who make this work. Because GIS is not going to function without IT. Someone said something there they probably shouldn't have said, but joking aside, the IT and the architecture is key for this to work. And then we go to pillar 6. In my years of experience in roaming around, even Canada, God bless the Canadians. Are there any Canadians in the room? No, that's good. I can be mean to Canadians. I like Canadians, but even the Canadians, everybody seems to, there's a common thread. Whether we're all making the same mistakes at the same time, I don't know, but there seems to be a common thread in terms of we never do enough about GIS training, education, and knowledge transfer. That's going to change. This is a blueprint for change. This strategic plan is a blueprint for making things happen over the next decade. Okay? Right. I'm going to come back to that. Note GIS maturity, all right? I'm not going to come in here, or we're not going to come in and say, oh, Chatham County's awful. Chatham County's not doing this, they're not doing that, they're not doing that. That doesn't make any sense. One, you don't really do it that way. What we do is we look at how well the county's doing, and then we look for gaps, and then we look for opportunities. And in the end, we're able to talk about maturity. So like the last organization I was working with, it happened to be a city 2 weeks ago. They were very operational, but they were deliberate, but they were structured in certain areas. So you can see that on the maturity chart, they were there. We'll see where we stand, Chatham County, on the maturity. And the only reason we do that is because at some stage, I have a fear of presenting to county officials. They're going to ask a lot of questions. I'll be delighted to, by the way, present to county officials this 10-year plan. And they're going to ask some really good questions. Where are we now? And where are we going? So I need to explain exactly where we are in terms of GIS maturity. Not on all the failings and the weaknesses and the missed opportunities, but we are probably deliberate and arranged and operational. But we need to get to enterprise, smart and sustainable, and we need to be organized, technical and formalized type of things. So you see what I mean? That all that does, that graphic, is it gives you an opportunity to see where we are based on a fairly rigorous assessment of existing conditions. And it's no reflection on where you are now, it's a reflection on maturity, a reflection on funding, reflection on staff. It's no harm, no foul. But this gives us an idea of where we're going. So if you go to the next. Okay, now that's the prerequisite to phases. Let's talk about phase one, the biggest phase, and that is current state and needs assessment. And the needs assessment's important. So let's talk about each of these tasks so you know what we're trying to do here. So let's go to task one, if you would. The task one is kickoff presentation. That's exactly what we're doing today. A kickoff presentation, trying to educate all the stakeholders. This is being recorded so everybody can see it. And I just don't want anybody to say, hey, I really don't know what the project's about, and I don't know how many tasks there are, and I don't know what the end game is here. The idea today is for everybody to kind of get an idea as best I can of what we're trying to do. So that's what the kickoff meeting presentation is. That's task 1A. If you go to the next, also in task 1, okay, is the technology seminar. I'm limited that to 10, 15 minutes because I'm doing it as I go. But at the end, I'm going to give you a quick technology seminar on what I think or how I think we should think about GIS now and in the future. So that technology seminar is built into today's meeting. If you go to the next. And then the final part of task 1 is project communication plan. So we'll be working on that. Michelle will be working on the communication plan. No big deal, don't need to spend the time on that. We're in a good place. So task 1 is fine. Now we move to task 2, online stakeholder and public engagement. To gather data and collect data and interview people, stakeholders, important stakeholders, you all are very important stakeholders to the success of this. We need maybe a 2 or 3-pronged attack. And this is one of the first prongs, really, because it is really sending a questionnaire out to all the stakeholders saying the county has selected Geographic Technologies Group to develop a 10-year geospatial strategic plan. Would you be so kind as to answering the following 10 questions? Seems reasonable enough. Everybody should be on board. Then everybody will have an opportunity to answer those questions, whether they're 10 or 15 questions. But those questions will allow people to be open and honest about whether their management is working, whether they're getting enough support from software, whether they're being educated and trained enough. It will be questions around those 6 pillars. Remember those 6 pillars in your back pocket? They're going to come up and up again. So the questionnaire will be around those. It will take probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We receive those, it's all done online, and we receive those, and then we can start formulating ideas about where the problems, challenges, or barriers are, or where the successes are, or where we are on the maturity scale. So that's the questionnaire. If you go to the next. Then task 3, stakeholder interviews, internal, external. Probably the most important part of this project is sitting with each department and allowing each department to talk about their understanding of GIS. and what they do now and what they think they should be doing in the future. And I'll be in on a lot of those. There'll be a team doing it, but we will be asking all the right questions and doing an inventory. That's an opportunity for everybody online, everybody here, an opportunity to think carefully about mapping GIS and geospatial science and everything associated with that. This is where I need you to don't get tied up in knots. We were talking about GIS. Think about what you do and where location matters. And then also, at the end of this, I want you to think about what type of questions you want GIS to answer. Because we're entering a new era of GIS. One could argue it's a paradigm shift. I wrote a book, you know. I had to look back at the book. I can't remember what I wrote in the book, but I talked about paradigm shifts, and I couldn't remember what I said about it. But being British and being cynical, I said, oh no, there's no paradigm shift. It's not really a paradigm shift. It's just a natural evolution of technology. I'll let you work that one out. Only because I suppose when Ms. Ellen said, hey, the world's not flat, maybe that's a paradigm shift. Okay, maybe that is. But I'll let you work out what's a paradigm shift and what's a natural evolution of technology. 10 years, we're looking at some significant natural evolutions of technology. Because we're in the drone business now, we're in the data capture business, we're in the AI business. Anyway, so going back to this stakeholder interviews, we're going to document each department, we're going to explore the roles of everybody, we're going to look at the challenges and the gaps and the opportunities. That's the fun in all of this. One of the nice things is when we do the interviews, we use Teams, so we were able to record, transcribe, and process a lot of the data which we used to do manually. So we are using a little ChatGPT and all of that stuff, and it's wonderful now because you're able to look at it and interpret and then decide. That's the big thing there. That's how big Chatham County is. So we've got a lot of work to do to friend everybody in all the departments, explain all of this to everybody, and let everybody in every department have an opportunity to explain where they think GIS should be going. And we're going to help you along. Virtually every department there can use location intelligence. We just don't know what and where at the moment. And, knowing David, a lot of them are doing it anyway. Also on top of in task 3 is the stakeholder interviews for external stakeholders. So we've got internal, most important. Secondly is we need to handpick the ones we want to talk to. We don't have to interview all of those, but my point in all of this GIS world is the fact that, think about this now, the GIS is internal, but there's so much external information coming from the federal government, from the state of Georgia, from all of these, and sharing information and coordinating information is really important. So we've got to look at external entities for the future, for now and in the future. One would argue, you know, and I've done a bit of research on this, but I've no evidence to prove it. One would argue that we should become much more regional in nature. And that's a philosophical discussion for a cup of coffee with anybody who wants a cup of coffee. So they're really important to us because we need to document it. Remember, this is a strategic plan, but when David rides off into the distance, okay, and does what he has to do somewhere and buys land in wherever, in France, and lives off, we need a document to give to somebody. We need a manual to give to somebody. So the more we talk about the strategic plan, the more it becomes a work plan, and the more it becomes a job description for the next GIS manager. Not that he's going anywhere. He's only, 38, heaven's sake. So we're in a good place there. We're in a good place. So keep going if you would, Sharon. You gave me an hour and a half. It was your fault for giving me an hour and a half. I'm covering lots of territory here, okay? We're only on task 4, the most exciting part. So, based on my understanding of human nature, I do not want to drop off or push under the door a 300-page discussion about what you're doing. I want to come back and describe to you in graphic detail where you stand with regards to GIS. So we use those 6 pillars. So let's just go to the next one, and let's talk about these for a second, all right? We're talking about, remember, pillar one, governance, then data, procedures, software, infrastructure, training, education, and knowledge transfer. And they're key to it. Go to the next, if you would, Sharon. So let's talk about number one, all right? Let's go through this quickly again. That's the type of graphic I want to show you. And I want to talk about if you've got a strategic plan, an older one, do you update it? Is there a vision, job classifications, steering committees, sponsors, functional groups, user groups? There's a slew of things that are best business practices, arguably are best business practices. So when we come in, we're saying, right, we're going to talk about governance. And guess what? Our experience tells us there are 26 components that we need to think about from a governance standpoint. So we're not coming in just talking about governance. We know exactly what makes up good governance and good management. And there's 26 for you. We used to write and write all day. There's 26. But we also have to look at the long-term GIS policy. We're not in the business of 3-5-year plan. We're in the 5-year plan. So we have to start thinking about emerging governance analytics, financial stability, and long-term GIS policy. But there are 26 there you all have an opportunity to see. That's governance. Go to the next, if you would. It gets a bit more complicated because this is my favorite section. So years ago, I read a book on high-performance organizations. So what I've been trying to do in publications and moving forward is look at high-performance organizations. High-performance organizations, in my opinion, possibly are a model for the future. So what you see there is a classic high-performance organization for a GIS department. Okay, you don't need to get into it now, you can see it later. But it's interesting because the world's changing, you know? The world's changing, and with it are some management styles. I don't use TikTok. I think that's a massive failing on my part. What my kids do, okay? And as awful as it is, it can be useful. Whether that fits in, it doesn't matter, but you see what I mean? There are certain techniques and tools people are using now. Where does it fit into a new governance strategy? Well, guess what? We've got 10 years to write about this. What I'm going to say in year 10. Anyway, keep going. That could manifest itself into the next slide. It could. I may have already done it for you. That we look at culture, innovation. That's a lot of waxing lyrical. But you see what I mean? Governance now and in 10 years is really important. And it will change. You go to the next. So now, again, GIS data and databases. This is where we will be bringing this back to you saying, well, this is where you stand graphically, and you can get a feel for it. And we'll be looking at key performance metrics for data and databases. We'll be looking at the accuracy of parcels, address points, center lines, aerial photography. We'll be looking at a central data repository, open data standards, open data community policy, digital data lifecycle, all of the things associated with data. We've decomposed them into a checklist, but the checklist becomes a paragraph. The paragraph becomes 2 pages. 2 pages becomes 300, 500 pages. That's why, I promise you, when I keep coming back to present all this, it's going to be graphic rich. That's why you saw the bar charts. Because the bar charts are going to speak volumes to you, and it'll be backed up with all this information. Keep going if you would. And then we've got to think about the emerging technologies, drone technology. We've got to think about digital twin. We've got to talk about different ways of collecting data. We've got to talk about the utility network. Think about the utility network for a second. Now, I know all of you don't know a lot about this, but I just want to explain it to you. A few years ago, ESRI, which is the de facto industry standard for software, someone in a room said, let's change the data schema or the data structure for our water, sewer, and stormwater and electric gas. And let's change it in such a way it's be AI-centric. So what they were doing is saying to everybody in the world, change the way you model utilities. And it was probably that decision they made, my guess, it was worth, I don't know, $500 million because everybody's moving to a different schema. A different schema that will allow you to ask some very interesting questions. Okay? So whether that was a business decision or a revenue decision or just, you know, the good of the people decision, I don't know. So there's a lot of things going on. Go to the next if you would. a long-term drone aerial photography strategy. I worked with a company, I don't know, 8 months ago, and they were saying they're a drone company. And it dawned on me after spending a bit of time with them, the next revolution in digital data creation could very well be these drone corridors. Years ago, 35 years ago, I would do strategic plans, and most of the recommendations were about digital data creation, whether it's a tree inventory, whether it's a sidewalk inventory, whether it's roads condition, whether it's structures or everything. There was a whole slew of data creation exercises. And now there isn't, for the most part. I mean, there are some. But the next revolution could very well be digitizing these corridors, no-fly zones, which corridors. What maybe there'd be, in Savannah, there'd be hundreds of drones dropping parcels off everywhere. I don't know. But maybe that's just part of it. So we've got to look into GIS, look into drone policy, procedures, guidelines, everything associated with little pieces of equipment flying in the sky. Okay, so that's important. Where we go with that, we'll be looking at other organizations around North America to see what's happening. Things are happening. You go to the next, Sharon. I know I'm getting a bit long-winded. So then we go to number 3, procedures, workflow, integration, and interoperability, meaning that Chatham County has invested a whole lot of money in enterprise software, whether it's asset management, whether it's building permits. There's a whole slew of software out there. We want to make sure that location intelligence is integrated and it's interoperable. So that's the key thing there. But we'll be looking at enterprise GIS integration and interoperability. We'll be looking at how we integrate with parcels, asset management. We'll be defining the difference between asset management and GIS, and one would argue GIS is the asset manager. We'll talk about that as well. Public safety solutions and more. So it keeps going to 18, you see on the left side. So there's a whole slew of things we'll be looking at when it comes to where GIS integrates with your existing systems. Are there systems out there that would benefit from looking at that data in a location manner? That's the key thing. And if we can look at it in a map form, how do we analyze it? How do we ask different questions? That's the key. Mapping it's one thing, locating it, looking at it, but then it's the questions we've got to get our head around, okay? So emerging technologies, automating workflow intelligence, and open data community engagement, where that fits in. And we'll be looking at best business practices for counties that are engaging the public. So we'll be looking at that as well. If you go to the next. And then software. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be producing bar charts so you can see it from a maturity standpoint, but we're looking at your licensing. I dread to think, I shouldn't say that, it's an awful thing to say. I dread to think how much you're paying for your software licensing. I think it's a lot of money, okay? Now, if we're gonna pay for this Esri software, we need to make sure we have enough users to warrant that type of thing. So we've been looking at that, we're working with David and looking at his licensing agreements and what we're getting out of that. We'll be looking at, COTS, custom code, widget, access to software, public-facing solutions, mobile solutions, county, etc. So there'll be a lot of software. If you go to the next. And it continues. So there's a lot of checklist things we've got to look at. So there's, as you can see from here, resilience, environmental intelligence, future use of AI in terms of the data and in terms of the software. And we'll be looking at Esri as to where they're taking their software with regards to AI. And machine learning, smart, resilient, and sustainable local government, and a whole slew of other things. Keep going. I just wanted to show you that. I created that a few years ago. It's still valid. You can see in terms of all the bits and bobs and pieces. We have the Esri software, and we have web-based solutions, mobile solutions, desktop solutions, and then enterprise architecture. That is, I just wanted to show you that to say, look, how many types of solutions there are out there. You don't have to get drawn into it, but there's everything we need field to office, office to field. It's all in place. How we use it, when we use it, is another matter. Go ahead, Sharon. And then IT infrastructure and GIS architecture. Again, architecture is important, the IT infrastructure, and we'll be looking at the technology plan, the strategic plan. We'll be looking at the architecture, the life cycle replacement, the training, the 24 uptime availability, backup, data storage. Often a lot of these things can be answered fairly quickly from the IT department, and most of the time, and if I had to guess, they're probably up and running with a lot of these things. But we do need a mobile action plan, and we do need to think about where IT fits into all of this now and in the future, whether it's cybersecurity or cloud native and edge GIS. Things like that we'll have to look at in this project. Not necessarily in the next 3 years or 5 years, but in the next 10 years it needs to come up. So some terminology needs to be brought up about discussing the next 5 to 10 years. If you go to the next. And then the final one, GIS training, education and knowledge transfer. So we will produce a graphic like that. These aren't your graphics, by the way. This is an example of how we will present the findings of where you stand with regards to training, education and knowledge transfer. We need, whether we want it or not, formal training, multi-tiered training, mobile software training, return on investment workshop training, community consultation training and things like that. So we'll be looking at and documenting what you're doing with regards to training, education and knowledge transfer. So you go to the next. There's a few more, just a few ideas for the future. And that's really where we stand. Now, gap analysis. After we've done all of that I've just said, we'll be able to say, well, I think we know where the gaps are. So you go to the next. So in the end, the next type of graphic is this is where we'll stand. I promise you I'm going to do this instead of giving you 300 pages. You'll get the 300 pages, but this is where we'll stand in terms of maturity. And if you hit the next button, we'll be looking at that type of thing instead of anything else. And then each governance to data to procedures, we'll look at it and it will be represented like that. This will be based on a rapid assessment, but it will be supported by all of the departmental interviews. So when we produce those dashboards of information, it's purely based on information we're gathering from you. We are recording it, we are transcribing it, we're interpreting it, and then we're determining where we stand. That will determine, the gaps will determine what tasks we need to think about for the future. And on top of that, we'll be looking at all the emerging technologies. If you go to the next, Sharon. And then from that, I think it's always useful to do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We've got all of this data from you all. We've got the questionnaire. We've got the benchmarking analysis. Why not talk about Chatham County in terms of what are the strengths? Because when you look at it, wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, Chatham County started GIS here, they've evolved here, and they've done this, and they've gone from 1 user to 300 users, and just really setting the scene for how well the county's done it. Then we look at the weaknesses, then opportunities and threats. And you know what the threats are. The threats are cybersecurity. The threats are people leaving, and we're in a pickle, okay? So we need to think about solutions for that. Won't go into all of those, but that's kind of a byproduct of all the data we're collecting. And then current state assessment, needs assessment, that's what you'll get. A digital version of that, and there'll be some hard copies as well, but it's digital in nature. You will all have access to that. You'll look at your own department, so you look at everything else. And then I'll be back here to present the needs assessment. And it'll be as long as this. I want you to all take this very seriously because there's a lot of information we're processing. There will be an executive part of it, but there will be a presentation of where we, the royal we, stand with regards to geospatial, all right? So that finishes phase 1 up. Massive amounts of data collection. Phase 2 isn't as long, but it's important because it is, we call it the future state definition or system design, but maybe it's a conceptual system, a conceptual future system design of where we're taking all of this. So there's a number of phases in this, and this is important. So from all that data, keep going, if you would, Sharon, and from all that data in phase 1, we're able to say, hey, this is the geospatial vision. Go ahead, Sharon, this is the geospatial vision, goals, objectives, and tasks. And I just wanted you to see a product of this. So the first thing is this vision, goals, and objectives. Hit the next, if you would. So have a look at that in terms of, we'll create a vision statement, we'll also develop goals, and then we'll have objectives, and the objectives will turn into a laundry list of tasks. Now that's something that again is another 300 pages, but I promise you that you will be able to put this in your back pocket and you'll be able to take it with you in poster form. But as you can see, just have a look, you get a feel, the bar charts are the assessment. The assessment turns into a vision, goals, objectives, and tasks. So all of that you can see, I don't really need to explain it, I don't think I do, in terms of how we're going to present all of the information. And the good thing is, it will be crystal clear and we can go to it any time. So if you go through all of that, and then training, education, and knowledge transfer. After that's done, we can breathe a little bit. We've gathered the data, we've presented the data, we know exactly where we are. We've benchmarked you, but we've created a baseline. But one of the big things for me is organizational alignment. It serves absolutely no purpose to develop a strategic plan if it's not in alignment with the elected people and that strategic plan. So when we look at the resilience framework, there's on the right, you can see, and there's other documents. If we're not in sync with all the strategic ratified documents this group have signed off on, then you have to ask yourself, why are we doing it? So it's absolutely vital. I guarantee if I stand up here and present to this group here, and they say, is it in step with all our other strategic initiatives? It has to be. So we've got to talk the language of that. So that's really important. The Chatham County blueprint, we've got to make sure GIS is in step with that. If you go to the next. And then future state and system design recommendations, that is with that documentation, and it will be, as we see, we can go through these next. Remember what I'm doing. We're looking at the 6 pillars. So the recommendations are, go through these quickly, Sharon. Number 1, we're going to go through governance recommendations, the future. Number 2, we're going to go through data and database recommendations. Number 3, we're going to go through procedures, workflow, integration, and interoperability. Number 4, we're going to give recommendations on software and everything associated with that. Number 5, IT infrastructure and GIS architecture. And number 6, GIS training, education, and knowledge transfer. It will keep coming up, but it will keep coming up for a good reason, because we evaluate the existing conditions using those 6 pillars. It's 6 pillars and 105 variables, but then we design it around those 6 and all the pieces in between. Okay? And then task 10 will be a future definitions and systems report. So we're in a good place. So I'll be presenting that. That will be the future of GIS for Chatham County. Remember, at this stage, we've got to think about support for this initiative. That's why throughout this project, I'm going to ask for support and consensus building. There will be consensus building. I'm looking for consensus on what we're doing. So please feel free at any time to say, hey, David, I don't agree. Let's talk about that. That's what we need, because when we do take it to council, we do need complete support for this initiative. Phase 3 is the implementation plan. Phase 3 is we've really got our plan in our back pocket now. Now we just need to do a couple of things. Good housekeeping things. If you go to the first, develop a geospatial budget. That's the first thing we need to do. So, you know, if this plan costs $1 million, $5 million, or 100,000, we don't know. But it's going to have a cost associated with that, and that's something we'll work on and be presenting that over the next 10 years. So we're in a good place. Detailed implementation schedule, great. It'll all be scheduled. Scheduled to the month. 10 years to the month, literally. And we'll have lots of time to get feedback and ideas and which are priorities. The argument you probably should have is, okay, you've done all this. Why have you prioritized that in month 1, year 1? well, there's a reason for it. So prioritizing how we do it is going to be an important part of the detailed implementation schedule. But the real good housekeeping is the benefit realization, return on investment, and value proposition. Okay? I wouldn't have taken this job if we couldn't do the benefit realization planning. And what that means is, what's the value of all of this? What's the return on investment? And that comes in late on, but this information you're seeing in front of you is collected in the early days. We just don't reveal it until the plan's done, because when I present to you and I say, year one, it's going to include these 7 tasks, and task 1 of the 7, this is the value. Now, these are the types of things we'll be talking about as we near completion to the project. We'll be starting to justify why geospatial science is so important. We'll be looking at the operational benefits, whether that's increased productivity, responding more quickly to citizen requests, or improving communication, or improving cross-departmental thinking. We'll be looking at all of these as we talk to you. So there's operational benefits, there's organizational benefits, whether it's inform and educate stakeholders, whether it's save money, save time, save lives. It's all about justifying why we're doing this. We're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. GIS and the new GIS and the new geospatial really has benefits. And when it comes to technical and tactical, we're looking at automating workflows, visualizing planning scenarios, asking the right question, monitoring real-time critical events, hazard mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. That's why we have all this geospatial stuff. It's just becoming a lot more dynamic. And then community environmental benefits, to establish an economic, societal, and environmental sustainability, monitor climate, promote cultural enrichment, preserve and promote historic resources. There's a whole slew there we've created, or I've created, a lot of them because of my interest in the value proposition. So when you see that title, benefit realization, return on investment, and value proposition, it's the same thing. I just like to add all 3 for more dramatic effect, so you take this seriously, and it's really important, okay? So task 14 is a comprehensive 10-year geospatial strategic plan. Go to the next. That's what we have, and we'll be using that, and it will be endorsed and ratified, meaning that there's no surprises. We've laid out our plan. This is where we're going. You go to the next. And then 10-year geospatial strategic plan. That's the presentation, with the final presentation. It'd be an executive summary on phase 1 and 2, and then talking about phase 3 more. The project schedule, we've moved the project schedule. It's 9 months now, so we're looking at February, finishing in February. Can we accelerate that? We can, maybe. The only problem in accelerating any project is giving you enough time to review the information and get back to us on what you think, and allowing you time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks. But that's something. It would be nice to finish by the end of the year, but as it stands, based on this schedule, and Michelle's online, she'll be killing me now because she's in charge of all of this. We're looking at, this, is it 9 months, 360, 9 months, end of February. So we're in a good place. We know what we're doing. We know there's an awful lot of work to be done in the early stages moving forward. And we're starting this afternoon, essentially, after this. Now, I promise you not to go long here. The technology seminar, I'm sure you can all imagine I could talk about this for hours and hours. I'm just going to take 9-10 minutes of your time. But let's just talk, this is just for us now. The technology seminar is more about, let's just have a chat about GIS for all those who aren't using GIS enough or whatever. Let's just go to the next, if you would, Sharon. Let's just have a look at what we put in here, and we can do this quickly. This is something I wrote years ago, whether it impacts you or it has any emotional impact on you. In 2050, the world's population will be 9.8 billion, right? 6.7 billion people will live in cities. The world of local government is not only becoming more urban, it's becoming more complex. More data to gather, more questions to answer, more options to consider, more decisions to be made. Unprecedented urban migration is forcing cities to find new ways of becoming more sustainable places to live. That's just for dramatic impact, okay? You go to the next. So what is GIS? There are so many definitions. GIS is a computer system capable of assembling, storing, manipulating, and displaying geographic reference information, data identified according to their location. A GIS is an organized collection of computer hardware, software, geographic data, and personnel to efficiently capture, store, update, manipulate, analyze, and display all forms of geographic reference information. There are so many definitions of GIS. Okay? I won't read that out, but the idea is, I'm a big believer in you formulating your own way of thinking about this project and thinking about what GIS is and what it can do for you. So many things going on. If you go to the next, Sharon. I put this in. This is interesting. This is interesting because trying to trace GIS back to some original source is always difficult. But Dr. John Snow in London in 1854 didn't agree that cholera was spread through air. So he started looking at water pumps. And all he did was identify what he calls focus of infection. So even in 1854, you can see they were mapping out where cholera outbreaks were. So not necessarily this was the start of it, but this is the early stage of people starting to mark on maps where things were happening. And in the end, it kind of revolutionized sanitation facilities and things like that. So that's Dr. John Snow. Ironically, a dissertation I wrote in London was about water quality as well, but this isn't about me again, remember that. This is about Dr. John Snow. I'm just telling you that because really it's just about looking at the location of information where it is. And remember, we have parcels, we have address points, we have center lines. We have a way of mapping absolutely everything in a moment, all right? So if that's the start of it, that's the start of it. It's a great way of thinking about epidemiology and GIS. If you go to the next. But what is GIS? Location intelligence, better decisions, connected data, operational awareness, business insights, actionable information. Absolutely. Maps, information, data, and the GIS. As simple as that. Maps, data, analysis, insights, decision, and outcomes. That's still valid today. It's just that this tip end is changing when it comes to AI. We're now starting to able to do different things, or we will be. If you go to the next, Sharon. This is a Marcel Marceau moment. I don't need to say anything really. That's just how it's perceived. That's how you should perceive, even today. Perceive it as layers of information, layers of digital data, layers of information. Go to the next, if you would. Okay. Database, analysis, visualization. Simple as that. And then you can add and wrap around more information. Again, coming back to the definitions, I'm just trying at the moment just to not so much educate you, just inform us all about traditional definitions, the business perspective, a platform with data-driven decision-making, technology perspectives, government, executives, and future-focused perspectives, which is all about smart cities, smart counties, smart organizations, smart municipalities. Exactly. All right? If you go to the next. So today we're going from mapping and visualization, asset management, field operations, and all the pieces in between. Today we're starting to talk about artificial intelligence. We're talking about digital twin technology, drone and autonomous systems, predictive analysis, smart cities infrastructure, and what that means is we're asking different questions. Go to the next one. Demonstrate successes. I'm going to bounce through these just to remind you that one good way of looking at GIS, I'm nearly done, I promise. One good way of looking at GIS is really through the eyes of the user. So just stop there for a second. These demonstrate successes, I'm about to show you, there's about 10 of them, that's all. I'll bounce through them. Remember, we're on the verge of going from where is GIS to what will happen. We're going from what happened to why did it happen, show me the data to tell me what it means, create a map, recommend an action, analyze the problem, help solve the problem. just as a teaser and an introduction to the way GIS is used now, to the way it will be used in the future. So you will be asking GIS to, okay, tell me what will happen here and what's most likely going to happen, and support me in a very different way. A different management way is going to be key over the next 10 years. So we'll bounce through these. So we have loads of applications that do not do that, but they will start doing that. So bounce through these if you would. These are applications our team has built, from the hub solution, keep going, Sharon, quickly, hub solution to economic development solutions, to a GIS viewer, all of the kind of tools there, to 3D, to capital project dashboard, to work order and asset management software integration, citizen services, public safety, fire analysis, and then document management. These are just examples of how we're integrating GIS. ERP integration, recreation and culture, sidewalk condition. I think that keeps on giving there. There you go. Capital improvement projects, capital projects, neighborhood officers, public safety, hazard mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery. Historic imagery, 3D for planning purposes, a new way we're moving into that world. Government services, I think we're nearly done. And then we're done. My plan at the end there was to introduce the fact that, yes, the world is building business applications. The world is using GIS very extensively. But now we are moving into a new world. But we still have a lot of work to be done in terms of existing conditions and then developing and designing the future. I'll stop there now. I don't know how long I went, but questions. I'll open it up to the floor for questions, and anybody online on Zoom, any questions we have, you can ask questions now, you can email questions, you can do anything you want, because this is an open forum. Any thoughts, ideas, or questions? We are in the early stages. In fact, we're in such the early stages, nobody needs to say anything, but as we get into it, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions and a lot of ideas and thoughts. Remember, I'll tell you a secret. I'm fortunate because I started this career, I hate to say it now, like 30 years ago. And my secret sauce is the fact that I've learned from government officials. So I put on pedestal all of you lot because I've learned so much from one strategic plan, in Wyoming to another strategic plan in Vancouver, Canada. And as you go, you meet some of the best people in the world who know what they're doing. Whether it's in IT, whether it's economic development, whether it's planning, whether it works, whether it's asset management, and you learn an awful lot. So I've learned a lot. So I'm able to come in very comfortably to work with you all and listen to your ideas and thoughts. And over the years, geospatial science has been inching forward all the time. And as it happens, just recently, we're starting to take a stride into the AI world. So there's a lot going on. It'll be a lot of fun. Your engagement is much appreciated, and we're looking forward to getting started. Any questions before we finish?
I have a question. So I would love to hear, in all of your experience, what makes this the planning phase, not the implementation phase, but this project most successful? What do counties and cities really do that helps them get the best possible results during the process?
Well, in a way, that's a good question. I suppose in a way, it's interesting the enthusiasm and the commitment from government professionals. That's what excites our team, is we start finding new things out and what's going on, because you're investing, IT for example, are investing a lot of money in enterprise solutions. and a lot of the staff want to do more and more. So there is a lot of enthusiasm, and there will be in Chatham County a lot of enthusiasm to, I do this, but can you help me do that? That's the beauty of it. I want to go from here to here. If geospatial science can help me do that, that's wonderful. If you combine all of those needs, you start to put together a plan that moves everybody forward above and beyond a lot of organizations. So it's a good question. For me, it's more about the personalities in government, the government professional personalities. Having said that, there are some very odd birds around as well, so anyway. I can tell you all about that, yeah. But yeah, no.
How do you keep the momentum going? So like in a situation like this, it's 10 years, right? So you're putting all this time into it, and people want to know, are we going to carry this forward? So how do you work with the stakeholders and the leaders of the county to say that this is investment in the future and to keep that momentum going?
This is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a 5-year strategic plan. The other 5 years give an opportunity for us to wow this group and wow everybody about, wow, I hadn't thought about that. So realistically, this is a 10-year geospatial plan, but David had the forethought to ask for a 10-year plan. He knows most of the meat of all of this is going to be the practical solutions in the next 5 years, especially for IT. That other 5 years makes this so interesting because we're now researching areas and looking for what other organizations doing with new, modern, advanced, and emerging technologies. So let's look at it as two-pronged. 5-year meat and potatoes, and then 5 years, where are we going, and wow. So that's the type of thing, really, with that. That's the honest truth in that, because it's very difficult for us to say, oh, in year 8, month 4, you'll be doing this. Well, yes and no, but we will prioritize and then develop a plan. But you'll find that the first 5 years are going to be really doable in terms of nailed on what we can do. After that, it's a little bit of a maintenance and emerging technologies and what we should be doing, what we could be doing. Okay? So that's the honest truth to that question. Because prognostication isn't my forte, but it may have to be a little bit with this, which should be fun, really, trying to guess what the future is, what the future will be in 9 years or 10 years. So.
Right, but I think that's an interesting point, because if you don't have the foundation, then you're going to be behind at that point to be able to do some of those things like the drone photos or really utilize digital twins, for example. So you're building the foundation for that next.
Let's say, based on, remember this is the PhD in the corner, that she's a bit too academic. We've got to get real. We've got to get real. Let's say, and if I had to guess, we may have to change the structure of all our databases moving forward for all this AI stuff to work. Because remember, the questions we're asking GIS now is based on the data schema we have in place. If we're going to ask a different question, first of all, the data schema may have to be modernized. I'm guessing now, maybe modernized. So look out for those types of things, because we're trying to get to this piece at the end is help me decide what to do. That's the question. So it's going to go back into the GIS data, and it's going to have to look at all of the data, and it's going to have to look at some external entities, and then come back to you and say, well, based on all the information, it makes sense that this road will deteriorate before any other road, and that is because of runoff, because of traffic volumes, and because it wasn't properly installed. I'm making it up as I go along, but that's where we're going. The answer is in the data structure, I think. I'm just, again, working through that. No more questions. Anything else? I promise you this will be fun. Well, it may not be for you, but it's going to be fun for me, because this is great stuff. So, and our subcontractors there, and they're so nice over there. They're going to be working together. So if there aren't any questions now, you can stay behind and ask questions, or you can email questions, or any questions are good questions. There's no bad question about this strategic initiative. And I look forward to seeing you all and working with you over the next 9 months. So thank you. See, I couldn't IT. Well, only because, you know, kind of you're running the show, really. I don't care what David says. I know who runs the show. It's the. Is it all 1 o'clock? Are you, is IT involved in that? Oh, great. No, because that can get really. You think this is boring? The next one, because I'm going to ask you 105 questions over those 6 pillars. It'll be kind of fun. Sit tight, get a cup of coffee, and we'll go through it. These two got away with it, or the director got away with it, yeah. Okay, all right.
That's for this afternoon?
Yeah.
Are you on the?
So I'm a little, there's a lot of meetings.
Oh, I know, yeah. We will meet at some stage. It's just that we have a benchmarking analysis this afternoon, and it would be good to have somebody there from IT. Yeah, so that works. But it's rivetingly boring, but it makes sense in the end.
Got the IT interview on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
County leadership. Keep it up.
Oh, really? Is that right? I haven't seen this. I'll look at the schedule. I haven't. No, I haven't memorised all those. But yeah, that makes sense. It does make sense.
Placeholders going around already.
I'm just here. I just thought, well, I'll go down to Savannah for a week and stay in chat. Can I?
Where's that?
That's upstairs.
Stop.
Oh yeah. No, I got that. That's true.
Use that room.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
Okay,
reserve it
perfect.
for.
I'm so pleased to have you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Got all that?
Okay, so the first one is the
No, I was going to say, let's sit down for a few minutes and have a chat. So, yeah, because I know you have some questions. But, no, far away. What?
Are you gonna come back over there for more?
okay.
Make sure he's not making promises we can't.
Oh, no, I'll go better than that.
Thank you. Definitely.
Or Charlotte.
Whatever you need, as long as you got the paychecks or the check.
The
checkbook
stores.
Okay.
Yeah, you said those shall post on it. Okay, go ahead and stop the recording.
Yeah, I was.
Well, it sounds like we have the engineering.
Project's just a vague
Hi, Brian.
project. So leave that with us, because I want you to.
The way.
At the end, if you want, so it's okay, yeah. I mean, the other thing is, you see, you can continue this relationship all over, so you're just enjoying it. Again, this is a good relationship, so, yeah. Good. I do, love the pictures. I thought, well, is this a modelling? Is this a modelling company or what? But well, it's a win-win anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, the key thing there is whatever you do, and you can keep me in the loop. Is ask you to, or we agree to do. Make sure that if you're going to phone somebody, 6 pieces of information, you got to check them off, and you don't. Not just a vagary and all that stuff. So that's great.
All right.
So
If you need anything from me,
Yeah.
this will be after.
Said,